Here we're going to look at applying functions with word problems where we're going to be asked to write the equation of lines. So in number 1, the number of daily flights an airline makes decreased approximately linearly from 876 in 2012 to 652 in 2018. Find an equation to model f of t, the number of daily flights. Be sure to define your variables. So here, notice that we're told that the number of daily flights decreases linearly. So what that tells you is that we're looking at y equals mx plus b. So that's the first thing that we're looking at to tell us what to do in this problem. So now to write an equation, we need to come up with a y equals mx plus b form. Except instead of saying y equals, we're going to end up with f of t. So if we think about what do we need in order to write the equation of a line, we need some information about what's going on. So we either need a slope and a point, or we need 2 points. So when they tell us the number in the year, they give us 2 points. Now when you think about which one is the x and which one is the y, think about, there's several ways to think about it. What I generally look at is, if you remember nothing else, remember that time, or the year, is your x value or your input. If you want to think about it, you want to think about slope as being like rise over run. So think about, what does it make sense to have the number of daily flights decreasing by flights per year or years per flight? Most people would say the number of flights is decreasing by, for example, 50 flights per year instead of 50 years per flight. So flights per year is what makes more sense in our head if you really stop and think about it. So that means we want to have the number of flights on top and the year on the bottom in the denominator. So when you find the slope here, we can take y2 minus y1, so we'll take 652 minus 876, so number of flights minus number of flights, divided by 2018, and notice that's the year that went with 652, minus 2012. So when you simplify that, you end up with right about negative 37.3. Now the units on that, we subtracted daily flights in the top. So daily flights per, we subtracted years in the bottom. So per year. So what that's basically telling us is that the number of daily flights has been decreasing by about 37.3 per year. So that gave us the slope. Now we need to find the vertical intercept. And this is the second very crucial step in the process. It told us to define our variables. So at this stage, what we can look at is, what do we want to choose as the starting value? Well, what would probably make the most sense is to use that year, 2012, as the starting year. Okay, we're going to start in that year. Well, what was the answer when we had the year 2012? We had 876. So when we define our variable, we're going to start t, or x, to be the number of years since 2012. So let t equal the number of years since 2012. And we've done many word problems where they've actually defined a variable for you like that, where they said let x or t be the number of years since a certain year. So that would have made 2012 be 0, and then 2018 be 6. And if you're thinking, well, gee, Marks, that's going to mess up our slope. It isn't, because instead of 2018 minus 2012, you would have 6 minus 0, which is still a difference of 6 years. So that's not going to change your slope at all. What it will change is when we go to the whole y equals mx plus b idea, because of the way we defined our variable here, we know that 876 is the starting value. So we know that 0, 876 will be on a graph, which means that 876 we can use as our starting value for b. So we know y equals our slope, which is negative 37.3 plus 876. And again, that's because of the way that we defined our variable for t. F of t, they told us, was the number of daily flights, so we already have like the y value defined for us. We just had to tell us what t represented. So that is the easiest way to do that question. So you're done writing the equation, except we have y instead of f of t, so we have to write it using proper notation. F of t equals negative 37.3 t plus 876. And I notice I do that a lot because of the t's and my pluses. I always think they're the same thing. I forgot the t up here for that. Okay, so there is your equation for f of t. So now in number 2, they want us to use that equation to solve f of t equals 500. So think about what that would mean. We don't know the year, but we know that the answer is 500, meaning the number of daily flights is 500. So if we go through and solve that, so set your equation equal to 500. I already have it worked out, so I'll just show you here so you can pause the video and try it. Okay, so when you solve that, you end up with about 10.1. So if we started 0 representing the year 2012, 10.1 years since then is about the year 2022, we would predict the airline to have 500 daily flights. Okay, so then we move on to the next one, number 3. So as you read that, you want to think about how can you set this up and what are you given to find slope. So read that and notice it says linearly again, which means we should be thinking y equals mx plus b. So we either need a point and a slope given to us or 2 points. So again, they give us a percentage in a given year and a percentage in a given year. So again, thinking through what makes sense for slope, it should make more sense to think about something changing in percent per year rather than years per percent. So percent per year means you would do the percentage on top. So subtract the percent minus percent divided by the change in years. Okay, and that gives you negative 1.5% per year. So pause the video if you need to and finish off the equation. Make sure you define your variables. That's very important. And I'll put the answer up. So we have P of t, I'm going to write it over because it was so messy, negative 1.5 t plus 48. So that's the equation of your line. Notice there we can define our t, or x if you prefer. I shouldn't say x because they tell you P of t. Sorry about that. So make sure that you use t, not x. So if you let t be the year since 2009, so basically our earlier year, 2009, let that be the number of years since 2009 for the t value. And that allows you to use 48 as the starting value for the y-intercept. Okay, and then the last part of this, evaluate P of 10. So now we're given the value in the parentheses, which means we're given the t-value in the parentheses. So after 10 years, what would our percentage be? That's what it's asking. So if you go through and solve that, you substitute 10 in place of t, and you end up getting about 33, which represents 33%. So after 10 years, in 2019, we predict 33% to finish their degree.